Hi there, everyone. This is Robbie Feinberg. I'm the Director of Communications and Government Relations for the Maine School Management Association. I am bringing you right now just a quick update on the latest happenings in Augusta. It is early December right now. It's getting cold outside. We just had the first official day of the legislative session. We likely won't have much more happening in the legislature until right around January, beginning of January, kind of going forward. That's when we're going to start to see committee hearings, when we're going to have actual House and Senate sessions. But I can give you a little bit of news and updates on what we have seen. We did just have the first day of the session. That was on Wednesday, December 4th. That was mostly just swearing in of lawmakers, but there were just a few pieces of information that we did want to share with you, and so we wanted to share with you this update. So first of all, in terms of what we did learn on that first legislative day, most importantly, what we learned was the date of cloture. Cloture is the day by which Maine lawmakers must all formally submit their bill requests to the revisor's office. This is a very important day in the legislature. It is the deadline. Legislators have to have all of their bill requests in by that point. This year, the date is going to be January 10th, 2025 at 4 p.m. Last session, it was in late December, so we have a bit more time, about, a couple of weeks more, to be able to talk with legislators so that legislators can get information that they need so that they can submit their bill requests that they do want to submit. So this is important. It's an important date to know because it's really helps to know when the kickoff to the legislative session really does begin. It's after that point that we can really get a sense. We'll get a full list of all of the bills that will be submitted. We'll be able to at least get a rough sense of what bills we're looking at. We can start to figure out, okay, what should we be watching for this session? Start to do some sort of preparation for the upcoming session. So that date, January 10th, is going to be very, very important. The other thing that we are hearing about as well, and we're excited about, is that we are hearing that lawmakers are starting to take a look at concept drafts in the legislative process. These concept drafts, you have probably heard about them over the past few years. They are basically, there is no real legislative language in these concept drafts. They are a bill, but what they basically are, it's just a title, and maybe you've got a sentence included. Maybe you've got a one sentence summary of that bill, but you have no real legislative language. And these can be really frustrating for groups like ours and for lots of people across the state because they do not give you much of a real window into what these bills actually are. So that can be very frustrating for us, for others. And where we have really seen this be frustrating is oftentimes a bill will stay a concept draft up until only, maybe a day or two or even less before an actual public hearing on a bill. So why this is frustrating is that it makes it really difficult for constituents, for residents, for groups like ours to be able to get real meaningful input on a bill if we don't know what is in that bill. This has been, as I mentioned, frustrating for us, but it's frustrating for many, many groups across the state. Certain legislators have also said that this is these are very frustrating kind of bills when things do proceed in this fashion. And so what is exciting is that this session we are hearing talk from legislative leaders, also from particular lawmakers. Lawmaker Republican Rick Bennett in particular has kind of really tried to take the lead on this, but they're looking at ways to potentially amend the joint rules of the legislature to potentially limit the use of these concept drafts. This is something that we're pleased to see because if we can amend that, then that means that we can have actual language for these bills. It makes it easier for us to be able to provide meaningful feedback to legislators about bills. We can know earlier, okay, this is what's going to be in this bill. This is how it's going to affect schools, and we can really prepare ahead of time and do a lot more preparation and be able to provide better, more meaningful feedback to lawmakers about these bills. So this is something that we are excited to see. We likely will hear more about this in the coming weeks. By probably the beginning of January, we're likely to hear more about this. So stay tuned. We will have more to report on that next month. And then finally, I just wanted to talk a little bit about the budget quickly, the state budget. The budget proposal from Governor Mills that isn't due to the legislature until early January. The date this year is January 10th, is when the governor's budget proposal is due. But even though it's still pretty far in the future, we are already hearing a lot of talk around the budget. And that is happening because there are some potential fiscal challenges that we have been hearing about over the past few months. In September, a report came out from state agencies that said that Maine's general fund could face what's called a structural gap, and this is the difference between the projected revenues for the state as the difference between that and projected expenses. And that structural gap was projected at that point to be more than $600 million. We do see these gaps. We have seen these gaps in past years, but this was certainly concerning for some lawmakers and certain groups to see a gap potentially that large and what that could mean for the budget for the upcoming biennium. We got some positive news in late November when the Revenue Forecasting Committee they met up and they basically were able to estimate that the state will be bringing in from now through fiscal year 2027 about $450 million more than what they had projected previously. So that's certainly good news. And it means that that structural gap will be smaller. That structural gap will depend on what the actual budget looks like, but it will be much smaller than what we thought, which is good news, but still there is a gap there. There are going to be budget challenges going forward. So that is certainly something to be watching. We've heard responses to this already from the governor. Governor Mills has cautioned. She has said she's cautioned about pursuing any significant new spending. She says that she intends to introduce a lean budget proposal that will honor existing commitments that the state has made to the greatest extent possible, with any new investments seriously limited. So that's really been the message from the governor, that she wants to focus on maintaining new programs as much as possible, maintaining what the state is already providing, but not on growing the budget. So that likely means that we may not see any big major new spending programs for the upcoming biennium. We are pleased to see that despite these issues as they've been rising up, we've heard from Governor Mills. She has been explicit, as well as some legislative leaders, about highlighting the importance of continuing to meet certain government programs and certain government responsibilities. And they've specifically signaled out the importance of continuing to meet the state's 55% share of education spending, and then also municipal revenue sharing as well. And so we are very encouraged to see that that does appear to be a priority for the governor and hopefully for legislative leaders as well going into the upcoming budget season. Obviously, we'll see what happens over the next several months in terms of what actually gets included in a budget, what things look like, but that was certainly encouraging to see. And again, the governor, she is required to submit her budget proposal to the legislature by, it is the first Friday after the first Monday of January, which this year is January 10th. So expect to hear a lot more from us once the action does start to pick up. We did want to just offer, a few updates about this sort of information here, but we should know a whole lot more by January about bills that we're watching, a clear budget picture. We'll be able to really fill you in on that sort of data and that sort of information. So in the meantime, we encourage you to try to really connect with your local lawmakers. That's such an important thing to be doing right now. You've got, a good amount of time before the legislature really gets underway to connect with your newly elected representatives, connect with your newly elected senators, talk to them about what you are seeing, the issues that are important to you. This is really important. making those connections and relationships right now can be really important when in, a few months from now, we will be asking for your support to and your action on certain bills. So when you've got those relationships, it will make it much easier in the future to reach out to your lawmaker and to ensure that your voice is heard. Then lastly, I just want to say that we have all sorts of legislative resources as well that we've put together here at Maine School Management. You will find that we've created dedicated legislative advocacy pages on both the Maine School Superintendents Association website and the Maine School Boards Association website. These are dedicated pages specifically reserved for all of the resources that we have about the legislative session, specific trainings about how you can advocate for your district, specific handouts as well. And then we also have links to ways to contact your representatives, links to legislative resources, lots of information all in one place. We really want this to be valuable for you so that you can stay informed, you can advocate for your school district in the best way possible. So again, we'll include links to those resources at the end of this video. So I think that's all that we have for today. We will be checking back in likely in a few weeks from now. Likely that'll be coming up, as I mentioned, in January. But again, thank you as always for your important work in advancing public education, and happy holidays. Thank you.